Hi everyone, welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host Louisa. Today is October 6, 2018, and this is our weekly Country Roads with our friend Winston Shrout. And of course, we have Winston with us. How are you today, Winston?
Well, doing pretty good. How about you?
I've had better days. We're doing this on Saturday instead of Friday because I had a really bad morning, or night, I should say, Thursday night into Friday. I don't know if these 5G towers, or there's certainly one close to my house, and it doesn't. I was so dizzy. I woke up. Couldn't even stand straight. I was so dizzy and throwing up and everything. It was very bad. So I can tell you that it's never experienced anything like that before. So
Actually, I have had those kind of experiences in the past, probably from a different source than yours came from. But speaking to uh, friends, so forth, it seems like everybody's getting pretty hit pretty hard. And speculation is this, this is their last shot, and they're trying to do as much damage as possible, but it's not going to work.
right. I think they know that, and I think they're just in like I said before, it's kind of like the criminal element that works within certain branches and offices um, are are finally meeting their fate, and we have to have a restored democracy here, or whatever we call it, but not what we have. I know it's not a democracy, but I'm saying that it has to be an appearance of democracy, or a restored republic, whatever you want to call it. But having said that, Winston, you know that we have a the GoldFish Report has a 24/7 news page on Facebook, and in that, we really update that all the time. I mean, we really report the latest news, and we report international news, not just news within the United States, but lots of news and different kinds of subjects. But as you know, I do a POTUS report as well on Monday with Jim Fetzer, and so politics, and since that was in my graduate program, politics and policy was one of the areas of focus for GoldFish Report. And I do have some news for our viewers. We are getting ready now to embark on a new project. I think our viewers knew this about 6 months ago, that we were obtaining permission to go to the White House press briefings. That has been, approved. And in order to make that happen, as a viewer-supported social media that we have to rely on viewers to support that kind of broadcasting. There will be reports from the White House. There will be by myself, and there will be also some live streams from the White House as well. So if viewers want this, and this is the kind of thing that you'd like to see, some interpretation of what's going on, and maybe some other news that might not, and questions that might not get discussed, I will be there, and I will have certain time frames, certain windows of time that I'll be able to go down there and do this. And I want to bring this to the viewers. And as a viewer-supported social media research company that we must rely on our viewers to support this. So I'm reaching out to all of our viewers who, if this is something that you feel would benefit you and give you a very unique, and I can tell you that there's no one in social media doing this right now. This will be the first who will be given that, to my knowledge anyway, being in the press briefing rooms during the press briefings, and certainly have the opportunity to ask questions when they come up, when the opportunity arises. It does put me at certain risk to be among the swamp, by all means, and I need to make sure that I'm going to be able to have accommodations to go down there and to get back and forth from the White House. And this has to be a viewer-supported project. So I reach out to the viewers who want to support this. You can go to our main website, and I'll share that with you right now. We did do some upgrading to the website. So here it is right here, and I'll move our little picture out of the way. You can go to our website, and you can donate right here. This will be updated to reflect that we are doing a fundraising drive right now for probably the next week or two in order to raise funds to allow me to continue covering during this important time in our world history. We have many new things going on within our government, and it would be a great time to be there and present it to you without the filter and the controlled narrative of the mainstream media. So here you can see you can go to PayPal, you can donate here, or you can go to our Patreon page and become a patron of the GoldFish Report. When you do, you receive our exclusive interviews 2 days prior to the public having been released to the public. So the patrons at the Patreon site will have access to those reports 2 days before the public receives them. So these are exclusive interviews. These aren't our regular broadcasts like the Country Roads and POTUS reports available to the public. And anything other than that would be presented to the Patreons first for 2 days. Live streams, there may be some live streams only for Patreons as well, but most live streams will be done on our Facebook news page, which you can find right here. Nope, that's not it. So, hold on, it's a little slow. This is it. Nope. These are questions. You see, this is all of our viewers. Look at our wonderful viewers we have here on the left-hand column. All these wonderful people who send me news stories and I publish them. Once I once I can validate that they're on other sites and that they're, bona fide reporting. So here's our 24/7 news page, and this is where we will have live streams uploaded from the White House. So this is really exciting, and I, certainly need to have travel, equipment to travel with. So that would be, a part of what we would need to do this fund drive for. And I really look forward to doing this and presenting this to our viewers, and I'm really excited about it. And
Yeah.
as a viewer supported social research, um, this is all, the viewers are part of this. The viewers participate in their way, and they are part of making that happen and bringing that to the people. So for anybody who's interested in doing that, we're going to be making these announcements over the next few reports and interviews so that we can make that come to fruition. So thanks for giving me that time to talk about that, Winston. And today, Winston's going to be talking about some very interesting and more of a spiritual nature today topics, talking more about the Beatitudes and some interesting, I guess, interpretations, which is always the topic of conversation when it comes to anything concerning the Old or the New Testament. It's always about interpretation and really understanding the, perspectives, because sometimes they're not exactly what we think. So I'll hand it over to you, Winston.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of wanted to start out today with a little. It's interesting. I always watch the internet for, the different reports, and all this stuff about the Supreme Court and Kavanaugh and stuff is coming up. So I was scrolling through some of the interviews and listening to the different things that people were talking about. And then I came upon one interview. I forgot, it may have been this Mark Levine guy who was doing the interviewing, but he was interviewing the governor of Kentucky. And naturally, I'd want to zoom in on that. So I was interested. I left Kentucky a long time ago, but I was interested in hearing what, the governor of Kentucky would be interviewed and what he might have to say. And I was glad I did. This guy was ever so impressive. And I think if you can find that interview, I don't have the reference to it now, but you can probably find it. And he gave a little bit of his own personal history. Now, he's not a native of Kentucky. He was actually born in Colorado. And he told about growing up. I think, grew up, kind of poor. Said they didn't have televisions, they didn't have this or that. Said they heated the house with a wood stove and all those kind of things. So he grew up kind of in a basic lifestyle. but one of the things, and the thing that really, and I stopped the interview and played it back to make sure I got exactly what he had said. And one of the things that he said that his mother had taught him and his siblings was the following. So let me screen share this. This is ever so important.
Oh, I don't mean to interrupt, Winston, but I did wanted to also mention to our viewers that we have a new blog, and I will do that uh, before we finish this report today.
Okay. Anyway, this is what he told in this interview. And I went back and replayed it and wrote it down to make sure I had it just as he said it. But this is what he said that his mother had stressed upon him and family as a young person, which is, at the end of the day, give back more than you got. Now, this is how he was raised. He was raised under this concept. And so, that's apparently how he's lived his life. He gave some of his history of his family growing up. He got into business. He saved his brother's business and eventually migrated, I guess you'd say, into the state of Kentucky. He had a successful business there. And actually, he's another one of those anomalies in the state. As far as actually reaching the level of governor. But I want to show, I started researching this guy. I wanted to know what kind of a fellow this really was. Is this just some politician who's saying all these things? Or is this man truthful? And I found out that he was. Apparently, he and his wife had 6 children. And I think the oldest son had died in some manner. I can't remember exactly what it was. But in any event, they'd had that family tragedy. And then he had actually gone to the state agencies, what do they call it? Child services, and they tried to adopt more children. And he was not allowed to. He couldn't adopt any more children through the state agencies in Kentucky. So guess what he did? I'll show you what he did.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. He went out and adopted 4 children from Ethiopia.
Oh my goodness. Oh, beautiful. Oh, they look so happy. Look at that. What a nice, big, happy family.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So if, like I say, going back to what his mother always taught him, at the end of the day, give back more than you got. And so his willingness, my goodness gracious. Most families wouldn't even comprehend having 6 children or 5 children, as it turned out. So he just upped the ante and said, "Okay, we'll just add some more." And so it's the state of Kentucky would not allow him to adopt any of the children out of the children welfare program. Can you believe that?
Look at the little boy with the bow tie. That is so cute.
So anyway, I was ever so impressed, and there's more yet I'm going to reveal. Because what wasn't said too much about these children is that they're homeschooled.
They're all homeschooled. Yeah.
Well, I don't know to what extent. I'm sure they have some interaction and stuff with the school system and so forth. But Governor of Kentucky with 9 children, 4 of whom are adopted.
Wow. And homeschooled.
Is a homeschooler.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How'd this guy ever get to be governor? I don't know.
Exactly. That's a good question.
Anyway,
But
it
that's
has a little bit
nice.
more information down here about him. I'll read it because it's kind of small. It says in this undated photo released by Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin,
Mm,
Bevin takes a self-portrait of his family. Bevin wants to overhaul the state's troubled child welfare program inspired by his own family's failed attempt to adopt a young girl. The Bevins started the process of trying to adopt a young girl from Kentucky's child welfare system. They had their fingerprints taken 3 times, opened up their home to an inspection. The state ultimately
mm.
rejected their application because the Bevins said they had 5 children and officials worried the girl wouldn't get enough attention. Oh, can you even imagine that? All right. Well, let me tell some more things that I've found out about this fella. He's worth looking into because as governor, he had introduced into the legislature. Let me just take this down. He had introduced into the state legislature House Bill 128, which was in the schools option. Okay, key on the word option. Option to teach biblical literacy. I don't know
Oh
how this
boy.
guy, I don't know how he's even walking upright.
Yeah, right. In this day and age, exactly.
Yes. And
Wow.
then as governor, he declared October the 4th of each year to be Bring Your Bible to School Day.
Holy cow. Holy cow. That's pretty. Never. Oh, got that
Okay,
chemtrail
well,
cough.
yeah, I know. Anyway, I just got to thinking about that and, what influence,
Mm,
one man can have.
right.
What influence can one man have? And really, what influence does one mother have?
Hmm.
This is something that his mother taught him.
Mm,
And apparently it sunk in. Because just look what he's done. He's not a career politician, he was a businessman. And he had a family, and he added to his family, even though they had had family tragedy. I think the oldest son had died. And even though they had family tragedy, at the end of that experience, for whatever benefit that his family received from that, they wanted to give back more than they got.
right. That's
Now, what
beautiful.
what if what if every person in the country,
Mm,
you know, took that attitude of
mm,
giving back more than they've gotten? We got way too many people that are simply trying to get, and not give anything back for it. And I think this is exactly what's happening right now with some of the policies of the United States is, hey, you people have been getting and getting and getting from the United States, and that just can't, and you're not giving anything back,
right. Right.
and that's coming to a dead screeching halt.
Yeah.
So this is really an important concept, for people to consider. It is that's the way that you make energy flow is you give it out, and if you want to be loved, then you have to love. If you want financial success, then you have to be a conduit. You have to allow energy in whatever form. You have to allow that energy to flow through you. And when you do, it'll be increased many times over. And I think the scripture, the parable that said, cast your bread upon the water, and after many days it'll return to you, however many times over. And then we also have the other parable of the talents. And, I mean, the storyline was there 3 individuals, the Lord gave one talent, another 2, and another, I don't know, 3 or 4 or whatever. And the one who had hidden his talent and had not given it out, at the very end of the analysis, he was damned, because a dam means no flow of water, no flow of energy. But to the others who had increased their talent, and the only way they could increase their talents was to put them into action. And so at the end of the experience, those who had increased their talents were multiplied many times over. So this is the correct principle. And I think is very well demonstrated by this governor, Matt Bevin. I mean, what better example could be set for all of us than what this fellow's done? I mean, it's extraordinary, it's unusual, and something for all of us to shoot for. I'll put it that way.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. And so, every once in a while we find one of these. I mean, it's like searching through digging in the ground and pulling out tons and tons of dirt and stuff, and finally you find that golden nugget. And there he was. And the reason I saw it was because he was being interviewed by one of these, I think it was Levine. I can't remember now. But somehow or the other, he was interviewed, and he brought these things up. And then I went to do a little bit more research, and it was astounding. So I've had a little bit of experience with some of those kind of things myself. I've always wanted to give back more than I got, and I have. I think I pretty much have.
I think it's a natural thing, when you realize that your basic needs are met and you see people whose aren't. I think it's a natural instinct within most humans to, lend a helping hand. I've
Yeah.
seen it time after time, Winston. I post videos of, people rescuing people during these massive floods and all these natural disasters that are happening now and increased. It's all over the world, folks. I think something's going on that we need to look into a little bit more about what all these massive earth changes are. And I see all the time people, um, all kinds of, just from rescuing animals to rescuing people to putting their life on the line, to help other people. It's really a beautiful thing. And I think that's what makes humans really so beautiful and wonderful, is their good nature.
Yeah.
Although we can be exploited for it too, sadly.
Yeah. You have to be careful. I've always had this attitude. When I was working, when I was driving back and forth to work, I always carried tools and different things. I have what I call my $1 million chain. I mean, you can't believe how many people I pulled. We got broke down on the highway or something like that. And I would just hook them up and pull them wherever they needed to go. This one night I was coming back, I think it was on a Friday night or something, and I got a bunch of lumber. I had it on the back of my pickup truck, and I was heading back to home and coming down the interstate. And if somebody's along the road, I'll always stop and ask, do they need help? Always, especially if it's a woman. So anyway, I just happened to be tooling along. It's nighttime. And so I saw a car broke down, and there was a woman standing by the car holding a small child. Oh crap! I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I pulled in, I pulled off the road up ahead of her, went back and talked to her. And what had happened, they'd broken down, and her husband had gotten a ride into town to get a tow truck. And so as far as all the appearances and stuff, or everything was, okay. And I said, well, look, I said, you don't know me. And I said, but I can't leave you standing here beside the road. Now I said, I can either take you to town, which she didn't want me to do because her husband would be coming back. I said, but at the very least, I said, I'm going to get up here in my pickup truck, lay down and go to sleep. If anything happens, you come wake me up. And then finally, tow truck came.
Mm.
And so I fired up the old pickup truck, took off again. But you can't leave people standing alongside the road.
Yeah, especially with a child. I mean, that's
Oh,
pretty
no.
scary. Yeah.
In the
And
middle of the night,
yeah.
after dark.
Yeah.
So I've always taken that attitude. And actually, like I say, this one instance, I picked up a fellow. I saved his life. If I hadn't picked him up, he'd have been a dead man standing alongside the road. So, you have opportunities, and you have to be careful. I mean, you don't do stupid things, but the experiences on the highway for me, have been quite rewarding. I'll put it that way.
Well, Winston, it's who you are, and you've mentioned this many times in the past, and especially talking about your own mother. I think it was probably one of our very first reports that brought tears to your eyes talking about your mom and
Yeah,
the values that she instilled in you that contributed anyway to making you who you are and why you do the things that you do. And I know that
yeah.
every time you're doing it with your mother there with you, or in a sense, like inspired from her, by her
Oh,
because
yeah. She's
of
not
that.
that far away. She comes
Yeah.
around every once in a while.
So really beautiful.
Actually, the old man comes around every once in a while too.
Oh, nice.
She, they were somewhat similar background, but he was a bona fide hillbilly. Oh gosh, I remember one time. That's a funny story. We had gone to. I had participated in a theme writing contest in the States through the Boy Scout, so the Boy Scout movement. I was in that movement, and so there was a state competition to write a theme on traffic, or I can't remember exactly, about safety on the highways or whatever. And so I wrote a theme, and I won. Can you believe that?
I can, Winston.
So anyway, we got
I believe
invited, to this big. I mean, there's a whole lot of people there, so it wasn't just for me.
it. Hmm.
But anyway, they had a dinner at the governor's mansion. And so I put on my scout outfits, my mother and father, they dressed up. So we were sitting there at this, big banquet table, and there were a lot of people and everything around. So I was watching the old man because I knew he was plotting something. And sure enough, man, they had all the things, all the pretty crystals and dinnerware and everything all set out, and then they had these little pitchers of cream, if people wanted to use it for coffee or tea or something like that. So I'm watching the old man, and he looked down this way and looked down this way. Nobody wasn't watching him, so he picked up that pitcher of cream and he drank it.
Oh, gee.
My mother scolded him.
Yeah,
Like I say, I mean,
yeah,
you take the boy out of the country. You can't take the country out of the boy. And to him, a pitcher of cream was, the cream de mint. So
oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
oh yeah,
Not to digress, but I had an uncle once who couldn't find the sugar when he was at my house visiting, but he
oh yeah.
found a tube. He found a tube of cake icing and he put it in his coffee. So gross. I'm like, how's that coffee? I was like, I can't believe you would even try it. Oh my God, it was the funniest thing I ever saw. He's cutting the tube open, pouring the tube of icing into the coffee. It's pretty gross. When you need sugar.
Hey, if you gotta have it, you gotta have it.
In any form.
Well, those are some life's little funny things, come up. But like I say, we're just plain folks like everybody else. I mean, you can go anywhere in the country and find, just natural people. And those are the kind that I really like to associate with. Like I say, during my experiences here, there, I mean, I've had an association with all levels, all the way up. And so, my natural inclination, though, is to associate and be around just normal people that just live their lives and do things. And it's fortunate or unfortunate, as the case may be, that I've been put into certain roles that I have tried to fulfill. I'm going to have to blame God for that because I didn't go looking for it. But in any event, today, along with Governor Bevins, October the 4th, bring your Bible to school day. I thought we would go a little bit more into this House Bill 128, option to teach Bible literacy. And so we're going to take a look at some of the scriptures and then analyze them as how they would be practical. Because, like I say, I mean, I don't care what philosopher or great man you're, if you can't take what they had to bring to us, if you can't take it and use it in a practical manner, what good did it do for them to even say it in the first place? So it don't make any difference if it's Jesus or Buddha or Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Mother Teresa or whoever. I mean, they say, they speak, they demonstrate, wonderful things as an example to the rest of us. And so what good would it do for them to give those examples or give those sayings, make those speeches, if we can't take those things and utilize them? Now, I had mentioned in some of our previous reports that we're on the way back. I mean, we've sunk as low as we possibly can on this planet. We have sunk as low as we possibly can. And so there's only two options. Either number one, destruction, or number two, reformation and come back. There's only two options. Because I don't think we can sink any lower. I mean, I don't even know how it's possible to get as low down as we gotten now. But
that's it.
On the lighter side, there's always opportunity for improvement. And in some of our previous reports, I had mentioned that in order to get into some of the higher levels of spirituality, you would at least have to arise to the moral ethic that's in King James. And so again, like I pointed out, King James is not a perfect book. I mean, it was compiled by men. It was translated by men, by other people who, for instance, we're going to go into some of the Beatitudes today, but that was not a transcription from a recorded speech that Jesus gave. Actually, those words were written down by a man some number of years after he spoke them. Are there imperfections in the words, in the translations, in the translations, in the translations? Yes. But if you take the things in the spirit that they were given, if there are imperfections in the translations and the words that men have ascribed to it, I think if you take it in the spirit, that it will be profitable to you. And so today, I wanted just to hit a few of them. They're in the Beatitudes, and let me kind of give the history of what's going on in that part of the world at that time. This was somewhere, around the hillsides and whatnot in near Jerusalem, and that the kingdom of Judah, as it were, had been conquered by the Romans as the last conqueror of them, and they were warned. they were warned about this. And then also there'd been a huge invasion of, I think we did that report on the Khazarians.
Yes. Mhm.
And so you have such characters who was Herod, who was not from the tribe of Judah. The Herodians, I think, were what's called Idumeans, and they weren't even Israelites at all. And so we have this this strange mixture of people who might turn out to hear what this Jesus fella was talking about, because he had become quite popular.
Mhm.
He really had.
Right.
And it was, I don't, go ahead.
Sorry, we had to do a little adjustment on the volume here. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, folks, we just use the equipment that we have. It's not top of the line equipment, trust me, but hopefully we can, make a good presentation that will be usable and presentable. So again, so I took my earbuds out. Maybe this will be better. We don't know. But going back to what we were talking about, getting into this character who is known by his Greek name. I mean, a lot of people like to call him Yehoso, however they say that. Anyway, those derivatives are from the Hebrew name Joshua, Yehoshua. And so, but anyway, in the Greek translation, it comes out Jesus, and so that's the name I'm most familiar with, and so that's what I'll call him. Like I've said before, if he don't like me calling him that, then he can certainly set me straight on it. Like I say, people get so worked up. I don't know what it is, about something about mysticism or something, And anyway, the historical fella whose Greek name was Jesus is who I'm talking about. In any event, he was able to raise a crowd. I mean, he had become so popular in Jerusalem at that time that on some occasions he could raise a crowd of 2,000 people. Another occasion, it says that he had a group of people, 5,000 people.
Mm.
Do you have any idea what percentage of that city that would have been? I mean,
Uh,
that was
Too
uh,
much for Howard to take not to take notice of,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
other Roman,
Oh, yeah, they were watching very, very closely. Now, let me also express that when you have to take, when you take the words that he spoke, you always have to be careful to remember who he is saying it to. For instance, if he's speaking to a crowd of people, 2,000 or whatever, who showed up, to, I don't know if it's announced or whether it's just extemporaneous. I don't know.
Hmm.
But anyway, 2,000 people gathered together and they wanted to hear what he had to say. And so he spoke to them. But remember, what was the crowd he was speaking to? He was speaking to people who had been living under Levitical law. And they had that Levitical law for some few thousand years, that they had been trying to live by that, and certainly it had been corrupted. Obviously, it was corrupted, or why would John the Baptist come out and censure him for it?
Hmm.
And so you have, at that point in the history of the people living at Jerusalem, some of whom at least were from the tribe of Israel, many of whom weren't. And so you have to put everything into perspective
Hmm.
when you evaluate what he is saying. And so some of it, might seem like, very, very simple things that you would teach a small child. Why is that? Because he was teaching people who were technically small children and had not been taught except in the traditions and the practices of the Levitical law. And then we have the incursion of the Romans with their paganism and the Herodians with their disgusting practices. I mean, that's why got John the Baptist ended up getting him uh, martyred. But so you have all these things going on. So when you read and when you listen to what this public lecture says, put it into perspective. Because if you don't, then you may lose a little bit. Now again, when Jesus spoke to the public, to the multitudes and so forth, he spoke at one level. And then when he was in private conversation with his disciples, went to another level. When he was in conversation with his trusted council of 12 apostles, it went to another level. And then finally on the Mount of Transfiguration, he only took 3, Peter, James, and John, to experience at that level. So what we're going to look at today is what he was willing to publicly reveal to that particular group of people. And you have to understand the nature of the people he was speaking to make any analysis. So I wanted to go through that just a little bit to make sure that people understood, that people that listen to this, so that people will understand what it is that's being spoken and who it's being spoken to, so that you can better analyze why he might say a particular thing in a particular manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We all know when it comes to public speaking, the thing you need to do is know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, so certainly you're going to, you're going to be sensitive to who your audience is when you're speaking, so that you speak to them on their level and in a way that they can relate to. Because if they can't relate to it, even if they can understand, even if it's on their level, if they can't relate to it, it's not useful to them.
Yeah. And so when I read or when I hear something at this level, is it possible that I can comprehend what's being referenced at this level? Can I comprehend it at some of these higher levels? Yes, I can. And that's why, in our previous reports, back when I was laboring very hard to build that model, and then later on when we went into the allegory and the Mentonal records, see, so we were stepping and building a model so that people could perhaps take, some of the information that's in the King James and up your understanding at least just a little bit. I think we accomplished that. But anyway, today let's look at some of the things that's here in Matthew chapter 5. It's there's a lot of good stuff in here. I just wanted to pull out a few things, for people, and people are certainly welcome, to go and read, study all these scriptures. I mean, we got the governor of Kentucky, Mark Bevan, trying to promote Bible literacy. And it don't say anything in there that he's a member of any particular church. He might be, I don't know.
Well, you don't
It
even
don't
have
make
to
any
be.
difference, huh?
You don't even have to be if you want to
Of
study the
course
Bible.
not.
I mean, it's certainly something worthwhile to embark upon. I mean, you don't,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to define yourself within a,
And I think what Martin Luther King, wasn't he a Baptist?
yes.
Yeah, he was. That's okay.
Hmm.
You know, if a Baptist says it or whoever says it, it don't make any difference. Listen to what they say and see if there's some good things that can be taken from it. And like I say, people always give me the crazy look when I tell them that, when I say that Jesus wasn't a Christian, because he wasn't.
Yeah.
Christianity wasn't even invented until 347 A.D.
Wasn't he?
Constantine
Wasn't he
did
a
that.
rabbi?
He was called rabbi,
Yeah.
and the word rabbi simply means teacher.
Hmm.
And he did reach a certain status in the community,
Hmm.
whereas they would call him rabbi. And I don't want to go into that because I know I'll just get in trouble if I do.
Yep.
But at an early age, he was in the synagogue
Yes.
teaching
Mhm.
the rabbis because he could. So anyway, what went on in the synagogue teaching the rabbis was perhaps, pretty high level thought process. But
For a
what we're talking about
13-year-old.
today is kind of here down, to us beginners. Let's put it that way.
Mortals. Mere mortals.
Yeah, we're just normal folks, And we come out, we heard about, Jesus going to go preaching over here, so we just went to listen to it to see what this guy might have to say. So anyway, I want to go through some of the statements he had made and point out some things that might cause people to look at
Mhm.
some of these basic elements with just a little bit more understanding and perhaps move up just a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to read Matthew 5:17 through 18. Let's see here. Oops, I got it way over here. Uh, okay, I have to read it. I don't have to put it up on the screen. Okay, it says, think not that I come to destroy the law. And that law was the law of Moses in the Levitical law of blood sacrifice, or the prophets. He said, I didn't come to destroy the law of prophets. He said, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. And so what he's saying there is he's the object of the prophecies and why the law was created. So he says, verily I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Fulfilled. That's the key word. And so when we start to talk about what was the intent of the law and the prophets, what he's saying was, well, that's why I'm here. I'm not here to destroy what the law and the prophets were, but I'm here to fulfill. So let's look at our own situation. What was the intent of the author of the Declaration of Independence? What was the intent of the authors of the Constitution for the United States of America? Are we here to destroy those things? Or are we here to fulfill those intents? See, those are things we need to consider. People need to look, take a look at their own actions. We're not here to destroy anything. We're here to see to it that the original intent, and that's what the big issue has been with this selection of a new Chief Justice for the Supreme Court, was that they wanted to evaluate him. Would he honor and sustain the intent?
Mm-hmm.
Would he fulfill the intent of the Constitution? That's what the question is. And then it got, sidetracked off onto some crazy stuff. But it appears that those in high places are satisfied that this individual can fulfill the intent. That's what's going on. So this is pretty much what Jesus was saying here about in his responsibility. But he wasn't here to destroy nothing. He's here to fulfill. So that's anyway, that's an important concept. So we see it yet again popping up, in our own time. Now this next one here, I want to be verse 22, and this is something we've talked about. And
Still Matthew, right?
Yeah, Matthew 5:22, and this is something we have discussed here, and we've tried to evaluate this. Anyway, he said, "But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment." Okay? That whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause. So on the flip side of that, you have to say, okay, if someone has a cause to be angry, are they justified in that anger? This is something we've talked about. And so I would have to say yes, that if there's cause, then anger is justified, because anger certainly is a motivating factor with many people. You see what I mean? So, people that simply go through life, uh, laughing and playing and being happy all the time, maybe, they're avoiding something they ought to do, because it's something, we've termed it later on as righteous indignation. So now this Governor Bevin over here, he went to the Child Protective Service, wanted to adopt a child and put him into a happier environment, certainly, than being in foster care or something like that. And the local government said, no, your family's too big already. Do you think he might have become a bit angry? I think he may have. And so that anger caused him to do what? He went out and adopted 4 more kids. So he took his anger and made it into something good. And that's how we can evaluate, what is the result of becoming angry? Do we just simply butt our head into the wall, or do we go and do something good? Anger is a motivator, in other words.
Yeah.
It can be.
But how we channel that and what we do with that, we need
Exactly.
to be, yeah, exactly. That's what the whole point is,
Mm-hmm.
It's like I could be really angry about, taking 7 years to get divorced, but
Yeah.
it's what it is, and I just choose to do something, positive, and to move beyond that. I mean, this sadly, there's a lot of backlog and congestion in the systems, so
Okay.
that's straightened out.
Now, this next one here is really the one that people have used with the technology that's referred to as acceptor for value. Anyway, it's again Matthew 5, verses 25 and 26, where it says, agree with thine adversary quickly. Adversary. Now, let's get back into adversary. As we've pointed out, in our present system, everything is adversarial. In other words, it's conflict. It's,
Yes.
and so how do you resolve conflict?
Right.
Well, in this case, Jesus is saying, well, agree with them. Okay. Somebody comes along and says, well, you owe us, $100. Okay, I agree with it. Now what? See, and so the technologies, that we've, that have been developed, we foster this concept to agree. Okay, we accept that. And then some people kicked in conditional acceptance, which I never really saw much with. But anyway, so agree with thine adversary while you're in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Now, how many people, when I used to do this, I was guilty of it all the time. If I ever got pulled over on a traffic stop, I'd get mad about it.
and I would go into conflict. Okay, how about we just agree? So, certainly in our modern time, we've had so many stories of people being involved in a traffic stop and getting into an argument. And, I mean, we had a fellow here some years ago in Portland. I mean, the officers killed him for just arguing with him over a traffic stop. So that's not really a good. So we always recommend to people, okay, agree with your adversary on the point and then go settle it later, because there are dangerous things that might come from it if you don't. It's too bad. It's too bad it's come to this. I mean, I've talked to a fellow. Oh, he's about my age. An old Marine, and I think is there in Boise, Idaho. And somebody, some officer stopped him for something. He got in an argument with him. He drug him out of the car and beat him up. And so, in our day and age, that's not a smart thing to do. So I don't do it anymore. Well, I don't need to anymore. And then verse 26 goes on and says, "Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing." All right. So again, this particular scripture that was given in the Sermon on the Mount, Beatitudes that was given at this level right here, in our modern world, we have taken that concept to a much, much higher level with better results than the converse of doing that. So again, like I say, you can find so many things in the scriptures that would point you to problem resolution that perhaps people just hadn't thought of. So that's what we've been trying to do. Now let's go to this other one here, which we've utilized quite a bit, which is, let's see, verse 44. Let me see if I can see it here. It says, "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." Now, I don't know how many people we've listened to who have said constantly, love is the greatest energy in the universe. Love. And so the recommendation that Jesus is saying here, when you get into problem or get into conflict or into adversarial situations, what ought you do to diffuse the problem? And this goes right along with that technique, that we've talked about in the past, Ho'oponopono. Mm-hmm. And to diffuse situations. Like I say, I was traveling with a wife one time, and she's been a great student of Ho'oponopono for years and years and years. So we're driving through this small town. She most likely was speeding. Anyway, pulled over, and before the police came up, I said, "Remember Ho'oponopono." So she did. So as the conversation with the officer went along, she worked in the statements, which was, "I'm sorry, can you please forgive me?" And she worked into her conversation with this officer the phrases that are key elements of Ho'oponopono. And sure enough, he let her slide. And I've talked to quite a few people who have taken that approach. "I'm sorry, please forgive me." And so again, I mean, where did Ho'oponopono come from? I mean, it's the same concept that Jesus was teaching 2,000 years ago for problem resolution. All right. So again, here we go. Now we get into let's see, chapter 6, into verse 9, which is called the Lord's Prayer. Now, when we were building that model so many months ago, to show the comparison between the model in the King James Version and the model in our modern commercial system, we had brought up the Lord's Prayer, and I think people were kind of, a little bit shocked at what's actually in there. So let me just read it here. He says,
Oh, give Winston just a minute there. We're all kind of got the chemtrail cough.
oh, listen, this chemtrail cough is going on all over the place. Everybody's coming down with it.
Yeah, I'm wheezing at night when I'm sleeping. I like hear the crackling in my lungs. I'm like, what is this?
Well, pretty serious. Anyway, not to get off on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back verse 9 here in chapter 6, verse 9. It says, after this manner, therefore pray, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven, as below, so above. How many times have we heard this?
Mm-hmm.
Thy kingdom come. Notice he said, he wants the kingdom of God to come. He didn't say anything about church, did he?
Never.
No. See, a lot of people are mistaken about the baptism of Jesus by John. John the Baptist, his baptism was baptism into the kingdom. So Jesus was not baptized for remission of sins, as so many are. He was baptized as an example that people should enter into the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven. Now, do the churches promote that? Not very often.
No, not really.
Yeah. So typically when people are baptized today, they're baptized into a church. Is that the same thing as kingdom of heaven?
Nope.
Not at all.
No, I don't think so.
So again, for all the Christians that go pounding on the Bible and saying the Lord's Prayer, do you understand what you're saying, what you're hearing when you repeat the Lord's Prayer? See? So again, we all have our little hiccups in life and so forth, but the scripture is quite plain on some of these things. Okay, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Now, again, as we pointed out, those terms are not spiritual terms. Those terms are terms that we would find in commerce.
Knew you were going to say that. Interesting.
And people are so many times, they're astounded what's in King James, what it says. Now, but the key to it here, so he's teaching people to ask Supreme Being for forgiveness of their debts, which is good. We should do that. But here's the caveat: as we forgive our debtors. And there's several parables through the New Testament to point this out. And so, it's one thing to ask for our debt to be forgiven, but are we forgiving those who over whom we're holding a debt? And I would suggest, according to the parables that you'll find through the New Testament, that if you are not forgiving those who have sinned or debted against you, that it would be improper and probably a waste of time to ask God to forgive you your debts. So these are concepts that would add to the level of ethic morality, at least at the King James Version.
Can you explain the term forgive? Because I think there's a lot of people that may have also, different interpretations of that. And I think it would be, I mean, because how does that work? Even if you forgive someone, do they still have that karma of the offense? Do they still carry that karma if you forgive them? So ultimately, will they ever be held accountable or learn from it? You know what I mean?
At the end of the day, give back more than you got. Give. Now, when you start to put this into the context you're asking about forgive, that would put me in the mind of the mission of this entity that we call Jesus, that he was the lamb slain before the foundation of the world, whereas he had provided a mechanism so that people could return to source, because their debts, or sins as they were paid for, redeemed prior to the commission of the act. And then, as we pointed out, and then as we go back to verse 25 and 26 of chapter 5, to agree or to accept. And we gave the example of the thief at Calvary who accepted, and then the murderer who did not. See? And so when you talk about forgive, okay, prior to the world, God, however you figure God to be, and I don't really care how you figure that out, but the supreme entity in the universe, whoever that is, or whatever you conceive it to be, had prepared the opportunity so that you could return from a fallen world that you had agreed to participate in for your own soul development. There was a process which was created, and it's called forgiveness of debt. And that was accomplished by creating an account, a prepaid account, prior to the time that people actually come on the planet. Does that kind of make sense, or do I need to?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we've talked about this many times on our report, so I think it's pretty clear that how this whole concept of prepaid, we've
Yeah.
talked about it many times.
And then we have mimicked that same concept in our present commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and just because you haven't come upon it yet, don't mean it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
It don't mean, you know, just because, you know, people, like I say, sometimes people get, you know, pretty shocked or excited, you know, when we bring some of these elements in. But just because you know you haven't come upon that concept, or if you have come upon the concept and haven't understood it completely, it is there. It is there for you, and it was pre-planned. At some point, let's see. Yeah, maybe I better do this right now. Pretty sure I have it over here. Well, okay. I don't have it handy here, but I was going to refer back to that book, Interpretive Writings, that we've spoken of so many times, where it showed you the path over, because it demonstrates in the scripture that that Eve sinned or created a debt, but it says that it does not say that Adam did that. It said he trespassed. Now, if you look at the other version of the Lord's Prayer, instead of using the word sin or debt, they use the word trespass. trespass and sin are not the same word.
Okay.
Trespass means to pass over. And so in the occasion of the Garden of Eden, when Eve certainly was about to be cast out of the garden by herself, and Adam came along and he did something which is known as trespass, which means to pass over the law. He passed over the law. There was provision to do that, and that's what he did. So, like I say, we're getting a little bit deeper into this, which I didn't intend to do. But in any event, when you look at the other version of the Lord's Prayer, he uses the word trespass. Don't get these two things confused.
I think a lot of people do use sin and trespass interchangeably.
Yeah, but they're not the same thing. What Adam did did not create a liability in him, and that's why this is all part of the plan. Okay, and so upon the occasion that God said, okay, well, he sinned, you trespassed, and so Adam at that point could make the issue. Okay, I trespassed, I passed over the law. Now I am entitled to a guarantee of return, which goes right along with the atonement and what we just talked about with the prepay, the forgiveness of sins from the foundation of the world. It's all in the scriptures. And many of the commercial elements that we're presently working with are exactly from those concepts. That's why I went to all that trouble to create the model so that people could understand and see that model. It's all right here in King James. It's all right here. And then others have, like myself, have taken some interest at least in studying the concepts in King James Version and then applying them in such a way that it has solutions to conflict that we come upon in our commercial world. And so these recommendations here that we're reading from the Sermon on the Mount, Beatitudes, and all those kind of things, many of these things can be used for conflict resolution. And see here, like I say, I brought this Joseph Smith character into this, several times. But I liked what he said, because he was all the time being accused of this, accused of that, And finally, he told the people who followed him, he said, look, if you won't accuse me, he said, I won't accuse you. And he said, if we have no accusers, then we'll go to heaven together. See, because it's the accusation that creates the conflict.
Yes.
Because the problem is that when we have difficulties, we do something that would cause a liability to another party, then we start to accuse each other. And we have completely thrown out the concept of prepay, of the atonement. And so, as far as conflict and problem resolution between people, again, because we're in this conflict mode with this adversarial approach to everything, people are constantly fighting with each other. They're accusing. You did this, you did that, you did this. Okay, where does that get you? Where does that get you? Again, go back to what this mother of this Governor Bevan had taught him. At the end of the day, give back. Give back more than you got. And if everybody would do that, we would have no conflict. We would have no conflict. So I'm putting Governor Bevan's mother on the same level as the teachings of Jesus. Would anybody disagree with me? If you did, you're making a mistake, because this woman was teaching correct principle, and apparently her son took her up on it. That's the way he lived. That's the way he has lived his life. And we ought ought we all not to live that way? And I'm suggesting we should. Because when you start, I mean, I've been reading, some of these statements from people, who are talking to, higher dimensional beings and all that kind of stuff. And they say by the time you get into the fifth dimension, there is virtually no conflict. They said, you go into the seventh dimension, there's absolutely no conflict. What does that mean? See, there's no accusers there. All these conflicts and difficulties and complications we have are right here in the third dimension. That's what I keep telling people. Get out of the third dimension thought process. You're not going to ascend as long as you keep it up. And the way that you can do that, the way that you can remove that commercial karma is as I have suggested. So again, like I say, you have to make a practical application. I mean, of the things that you might read in the scriptures, or the practical application of what Gandhi was trying to put across to the people, or Mother Teresa, or Matt Bevin, the governor of Kentucky. See? And so we all need to take heed of that. Yes?
Yeah, Winston, you're just not from here, so I mean, you see things differently than most people do, and it's so incredibly, I have to say, I mean, if it wasn't for Winston's wisdom and looking at this in a completely different perspective and making the relationships to commerce from the King James Bible, I don't know if I would have ever come to that conclusion on my own in this lifetime. I think that because we were told to think about it strictly in a spiritual sense, nobody would have really thought about it, how it related to commerce, conflict, and all these other things. Well, maybe some conflict, but it's so natural for you, Winston. It's just uncanny that it's so natural to you, not to point out, these actions. Not that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about making the relationships in the context that
Yeah.
you are with commerce, and how it really was I guess, template for commerce. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
can see it now, but I mean, I'll tell you, usually we're pretty literal. I mean, we don't really have, and look, if you go into churches, people don't have these, preachers making these, and that's why I said in the very beginning of our report today, it has to do with interpretation. I mean, if someone's interpreting this strictly along, I mean, you're limited to their understanding of it. So, that's, I think, why it's a little bit of an unfamiliar concept to have this, I would say, um, liberty. I mean, you're taking liberty at interpreting this in a way that people usually don't, but that they have a limitation of their understanding of it, and that you have a very different perspective of it, and it's very reassuring. I mean, it's incredibly, we're blessed. I have to say that viewers and people who have known Winston even before Goldfish Report, I mean, I think anyone, feels really truly blessed when they, can benefit from, and they listen to how Winston imparts his knowledge to all of us, and does this in such a, really quite eloquent, actually. I know you may think it's very simple, but it does get the point across, and we do and I'm very grateful for you, Winston. I truly am, and for your unique perspective, and I would say interpretation of this. And as you said, if you look through the Bible and you look through the UCC codes, there's very direct correlations between them.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like I say, we're in a third dimension. We're in a fallen world.
Mm.
Now, this Jesus was speaking to people who were in a fallen world. Were he speaking to people at higher dimensions, would he have said things differently? Probably, because if you're in some of these higher dimensions, there's no conflict.
Right.
But because we're living in an adversarial dog-eat-dog conflict world, these are the recommendations that he gave to pacify or to solve some of these conflicts. And he saw no reason for people to be killing one another. Like he said, you know, when Jesus came in 1890 to Walker Lake, Nevada, and they had that huge gathering of representatives of all the native tribes, he told them they needed to stop fighting. And some of them paid attention to it, some of them didn't. And as a result of that, I mean, there have been huge massacres and all kinds of things that occurred from it. And it actually hadn't gotten any better over the time. And but what has his recommendation 2,000 years ago was the same recommendation he was given to the native people in 1890. Stop all this conflict. You can't get out of a world of conflict, the third dimension, as long as you keep doing it. And you know, and that's the same thing that we as individuals, I don't care if you're white, brown, red, or whatever, it's the same process. And as long as we maintain. I mean, I watch these YouTube presentations about these people, you know, in Congress, and they're yelling and screaming at each other, accusing, pointing their fingers. I mean, I was just lucky I come upon that one interview with Matt Bevin in all that turmoil. I mean, I was looking through all the different ones and everything, and I come upon this thing with this Matt Bevin guy. And I listened to it because, I mean, he was analyzing what was going on from his point of view. And then finally, you know, I was listening to it, and he said what his mother had taught him. At the end of the day, give more than you got. And I rewound it 2 or 3, and I wrote it down because there's somebody who is delivering the message of the master. Now, it's obvious if Matt Bevin is putting in House bills to the Kentucky legislature and so forth for options for Bible literacy in the public schools.
Bring it back.
What's Matt trying to do? And he declared, bring your Bible, October the 4th of every year from here on out is bring your Bible to school day.
Thinking about moving back there, Winston?
My God Almighty! Let's see if we can't find 49 other governors that act that way. And I don't think Matt was trying to promote any particular church or any particular religion. But what his essence was saying was, hey, there's some good things in this book here that would help people, And so he was just trying to, in my mind, I think he's just trying to promote that. He wasn't trying to get past the freedom of religion concepts and so forth, but he was just saying, hey, here's a good book. Let's put it into effect. And so, I noticed he hadn't got shot yet, so I guess people in that area in Kentucky or whatnot are going to what he had to say. Anyway, that's just one good example. I'm sure there are many other good examples, but this is just one I wanted to bring up today. Obviously, because like I say, it's kind of I thought it was so funny that the state welfare people wouldn't let him adopt an orphan girl because they said he had too many kids in his family already. They didn't think that this orphan child was going to get any attention. They know nothing about family structure.
Yeah, no.
The big ones always take care of the little ones.
Absolutely.
Always.
Ask the Duggars.
I mean, when I go to my family functions, when we camp out or Christmas parties and stuff like that, the big ones always are looking out for the little ones. They get more attention than the parents can actually provide. And so, when you have a family of 5, you have a family of 6. In this case right now, he's got a family of 9. Don't you think that one little boy that you was looking at there?
Yeah, with the little bow tie.
Can you imagine how much attention that little fella's getting?
Oh, I'm sure he gets a lot. Sorry, I was.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I can guarantee you that he's getting more attention than the big ones are.
He's adorable.
But that's how large families function. I can speak from personal experience.
Right.
That's how large families function.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you know, like I say, you know, so the social services said he couldn't adopt a little girl from the, you know, so he said, okay, I'll fix that problem. So he went out and adopted 4 more from another country.
It really just goes to show how incredibly unqualified they are to be in that position and to, you know, be making decisions like that. And we don't really need that function, you know.
Matt Bevin is not a politician; he's a father,
Yeah.
and he done more good for that state since he's been there than probably anybody before him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I say, I haven't kept up on Kentucky politics for a long time, but my memory of what went on there with typical political BS that went on. Like I say, my mother had a brother, and he was successful in business. I mean, he was a pharmacist. He had several drugstores, and so one time I was visiting with him there in his office at his business, and he told me, he said, you know, the man who was the governor right then, he said, that guy sat in that chair right there. He said, I passed over to him 5 $100 bills. He told me, crooked, you know. And if my uncle passed him 500, I'm sure every other business he went to, they passed him, you know, cash. This is not a contribution to the election campaign or nothing like that. This is cash he passed to him.
Yeah.
You know, my taste for politics, you know, is pretty sour.
I'm
Well, I can
sorry.
guarantee this fellow right here,
Yeah.
he's not a politician. He's not a I doubt he's even a statesman. I mean, I haven't heard him give any speeches or anything like that. But he is a caring, concerned, and he is a father to the state of Kentucky.
That
That's what
homeschools his kids. And I tell you, that's got to be why he got elected. And you let the people, you know, have a voice. You let the people speak up.
I can't believe any man like him ever got elected to anything, to be perfectly honest. Usually they stone them or nail them to crosses.
Exactly.
Anyway, there was one more, a couple more actually. Well, if you go further on what we just read, so verse 14 says, for if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So again, it's conditional. This prepay is conditional, and that is give more than you got. And if you don't give, then God is not going to got you anything. You see what I mean? A little play on words there.
Yeah.
And there's one other in see verse 21 here. I wanted to look at one of them. It's kind of hard to see. Oh yeah. And this is lay not up for yourselves. This is verse 19. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. Now here's the key. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Wherever your treasure's at. Now, if your treasure's over here at the local bank, that's one thing. If you have built up an account by giving more than you got, and you've laid up that treasure in a place that is uncorruptible, such as, if you don't call it heaven, that's fine. But the key to it is that wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. That's where your heart's going to be. And again, as we mentioned, the heart is the center of love. And so if your treasure is over here in the local bank, that's where your heart's going to be, and you're going to be loving money. Yeah. And we go back again to that Ayn Rand thing we talked about a while ago. Yeah, money's not the root of all evil; it's the love of money. And so these are just plain, simple concepts. And, you know, we have become so complicated, so complex, that we have neglected even the most simplest of concepts that would have given us success had we applied them. And so there's one last thing that I'll give.
Well, I think it's also sacred, not just simple, but sacred.
Uh-huh.
What do people hold sacred to them anymore? And is family on that list?
Yeah. Let's see. All right. And this reinforces what we just said, and that is, get off your backside and go do something. It says here in chapter 7, verse 21, says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. Again, we ain't talking about churches here. Okay, so not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. The key word there is doeth. And so, like I say, you can be a PhD, you can be a scholar on the Bible. You can say, or you can go to church and you can get up and pray and preach and carry on, do whatever you want to do. But until you do the will of the one who provided forgiveness and the prepay, you're not making any headway until you do. And so again, like I say, we, people run around saying, well, we're a Christian nation. Oh, really? Then why aren't you acting like it? See, that's the height of hypocrisy to claim that we're a Christian nation or a Buddhist nation or an Islamic nation. I mean, we got some really bright lights that have come. I mean, we got Jesus, we got Buddha, we got Muhammad, we got all these other characters who apparently were very, very advanced, who have come into the third dimension, have taken bodies and given information to the people who have not arrived at that level yet that would help them to move up. And so it's not just hearing somebody say something or saying, what a great guy you are, Jesus. You're just spectacular. You have to do it. You have to make it work. So I think that's pretty much my message. Huh?
Well, he also said, you'll know them by their fruits.
Oh yeah, that's an evaluation process.
That's it, and so it's not what you say, it's what you do. Definitely.
Yeah, so today I've just pretty much, stuck to the Bible.
Yeah.
With a lot of this, the government apparently don't like me talking about the problem resolution using the technology that's come from the Bible, but I don't think they can object to me talking about the Bible. So that's what I've related this whole conversation to.
Well, it's interesting because you said, I think as far as the Lord's Prayer goes, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so, but in trespass, so this is what people don't understand in terms of this is what they're talking about is the conditional prepay. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope that was clear.
And, that model was created in our present commercial system, and then since 1933 or whatever, the birth certificate, we talked about all that, but then they went to hide it from the people so they couldn't use it. And so as different ones over the years have discovered, this or that about those situations and tried to utilize them, then the government prosecutes them for it. And that's exactly what happened to me, or is happening to me. So, I ain't the first one, but what we're relying upon at this point is the change in government, the change in the financial matrix, and all these kind of things because again, we have inserted the energy into these things for the change. And like I say, some of the things that I've done over the years, like I say, we referred back to this simple commercial lien process we did back in 2012 to prevent the federal banks from rechartering. That was a good step. And so a cascade effect happened from that. And just as soon as I did that, who came out against me? The weaponized IRS. And so again, like I say, when some of us, are able to find things that would be of assistance to kind of move us up a little bit in our national or even in our planetary processes and so forth, yeah, there is pushback. There is pushback for those who would want to maintain a lie. And again, going back to the scriptures again, I mean, I think I referred to this some time ago, but the scripture said, I can't tell you what the reference is now, I have to go look it up, but it says basically, for those who receive not a love of the truth, that God would send them strong delusion so that they would believe a lie and fall back. Okay. So again, this is a recommendation for all of us to be very, very careful. That is, when truth is available, whether it's in King James Version, the Geneva Bible, or what other holy books that you can find. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And so, but when we refuse to accept the love of truth, God would send strong delusion so that we would believe a lie and be destroyed. And that's where we're at right now. As far as our present corrections and our financial systems and all these kind of things, it's because that we have not taken these truths, these models and so forth, as we've spoken of them, and we have not loved that truth. Now, the word love again means to join with, to become one with. That's what love is. A lot of people think, well, no, it's romantic. Everybody's kissing and hugging. All that's an outward display of love. But love is an intense desire to join with and to be one with. And so, if you take that definition and apply it to this scripture, it says, because they don't join with the truth. Mm-hmm. The consequence was strong delusion. And we see that all around. And it is such a terrible thing that so many people become deluded. And then they chase off in all kinds of directions looking for stuff because of the delusion that they brought upon themselves. And so this is one of the things that we as educators and people that are trying to bring people back in, draw people back in from their journey. That's what we're trying to do, is to present the truth in such a way that's understandable so they can come to love and join with the truth to avoid the destruction that will follow if they do not. And so again, it's a labor of love on our part, GoldFish Report or whoever. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to, but I really wanted to bring out that thing about Matt Bevins. I mean, that's a cool story, isn't it?
It really is. It's beautiful. It reminds me of, growing up, the way I grew up and the way my family, from the South anyway, grew up, and big families a lot, you know,
Yeah.
especially Irish families, even up northeast, big families, Irish families, you
Yeah.
know, always. So it was like that. You know, one other thing I wanted to do that I forgot to do was I wanted to mention that we do have our new Goldfish Report blog up, and this is what it looks like. And of course, this is the only thing published on it because we just finished. We were blocked before from creating the blog for some reason, so I'm not sure why, but I think it. Because we're also using Canary Chronicles blog, so that blog had been posting all of our reports, but we are now back on, and we have a nice picture of this heavenly, earthly plane that we live on, this third dimensional, God-forsaken plane sometimes. But, you know, what's here is a letter. And Winston can explain this if he wants, if you'd like to.
Well, this was a part of, supposedly they're supposed to have a sentencing on my case on October the 22nd. And the public defender had put this together as a template, more or less, to create a letter that would give the guy who sits up front, passing out sentences and so forth, a show of public support. He felt like it would have an impact and so forth. So if you want to download that, take a look at it. It has a place. You can either send it
Mm-hmm.
in the form of a letter or email it, and then it goes to the public defender, and then he would, you know, I would doubt the judge ever reads any of that. But, you know, if all of a sudden public defender says, well, we have 100, 200, 300 letters from people out here
Yeah.
in support of, then, you know, it might have an impact. We'll see.
I do want to say that that I hope that our viewers who have come to know Winston, either in the past or through Goldfish Report, that you know, if you feel inclined to share your support about Winston and what he has brought to you. Um, I encourage all of our viewers to do so. I have done so, and I do have to say, and I think our viewers will agree, that I feel that I actually am a better person because I know Winston, and I feel that it's Winston's been a blessing in my own personal life, and his wisdom and knowledge have opened my my heart, and it's opened my mind. And there's very few people in this world you can really say that about. So I just wanted to put that on the record, Winston, because I'm so very, very grateful for you and for what you worked all your life to research, to understand, and your, you know, unrelenting commitment to bring that to the people without ever, you know, missing a day. We've done this for 13, I believe 13, 14, actually it might be more like 15
Long
months
time.
now, about 15 months now. Yeah. So, you know, close to a year and a half. So I have to, now that I think about it, it has been a little bit longer than I had originally thought, but we never missed a week. And we, you know, again, it's in service, always in service to a higher
Sure.
purpose. Yeah. Higher spirit. So
Well,
thank
let
you.
me give this recommendation to people. Like I say, you know, a lot of people I know have, you know, sent me emails, say they're praying for me, things like that. Well, you know, which I appreciate. But let me say, you know, you might also want to drop a prayer too for the people who are doing this, because they fall into the same category of, because they love not the truth. That God has sent them a delusion. They're acting on that delusion, and the consequence of that uh, will not. It won't be a happy day. So I recommend the same thing that Jesus did. That is, you know, to forgive people, which I did. I publicly in court forgave them. And so now the responsibility is on them. At some point, you know, I just completely surrendered, you know, to the whole matter to God, and let it come out how it will. I think it's probably going to come out very favorable myself because, like I said, I got attacked last March and fatally attacked. And then the Lions came in and brought me back. And they didn't bring me back just so I can go sit in jail somewhere. And so I'm predicting a favorable situation to come up. But I do appreciate those who would like to give their support. It's not for me. It's for you. If you get my drift.
Absolutely. Well, Winston, thank you so much. And we're going to not only keep you in our prayers, we will definitely keep those.
You're on mute.
Grief. Okay. So thanks, Winston. I don't know what I just said. I was talking already. Talking and talking. Yeah. Okay. So, well, we do appreciate your bringing your knowledge to us, Winston, and very, very grateful. And I think everybody, our viewers know this. The comment section is always filled with wonderful, loving comments. We've had a few people actually who didn't really belong there, but I think that the overwhelming majority of people have benefited greatly from Winston's wisdom and
I
from
hope
us
so.
bringing this to people. And I would hope that they would write a small email or a small letter, send an email to the individual on that list. So please, what you have to do is go to thegoldfishreport.blogspot.com, and the links to all of our pages are, of course, on the front page of our website. If you find us on YouTube and there's commercials, it's not our page. So all you need to do is go to our website and access our links from there. And you'll know that it's an official Goldfish Report page, and that our PayPal is there and our Patreon is there. And those are all original and official links. So having said that, I just want to remind our viewers again that we are starting to support Goldfish Report and being and covering the developments that are going on right now with President Trump. I have been given the privilege to press privileges to go to the White House press briefings. And so, since this is a viewer-supported social media, I reach out to the viewers. If you want to bring this kind of information to you through social media, then support this project that we're embarking on. It's time for the Goldfish Report to become a big fish. We're growing our fins, so to speak, and it's time to really become a big fish. Even though we're always going to be, it's a little fish. We've always taken the little fish approach, but um, we're growing as an entity, and it's always been grassroots, and it's always been with our viewers, and we couldn't do it without our viewers, because I feel like our viewers are part of Goldfish Report. We couldn't be here without you. As I showed you, when we first started, all the people who send me messages, emails, people who send donations, even if it's $5, it all helps. It costs money to run this and keep it going and provide you with 279 reports now. Today's our 279th report. So, I'm grateful for those who have participated to help keep Goldfish Report going. And as far as I'm concerned, you're all part of Goldfish Report, and this is all for you. So there's no other reason for me to be here. I I'm just trying to serve a higher good here. So Winston, thank you, and thanks to our viewers. And we will be back on Monday with a POTUS report. We will also be back next week, right, Winston, with another country roads.
Good Lord are willing and the creek don't rise.
Yeah, I know. And please, folks, I hope you say some prayers for me too. I was really
Yeah.
in bad shape yesterday, and um, I recovered a little bit, but I think that there's definitely, some very nefarious, suddenly, uh, technology poles that have been installed around and near me, and they are causing ill health effects. And I do hope that I can continue to do this work for you. Um, And I really do need that protection because right now, I think all of the as you can see in Washington, it's insanity. There's a changing of the guard going on, and there's a lot of people who are not happy about it. So anybody who wants to talk in favor of more positive changes going on, there's resistance to that. So let's all stick together and hold together. And we have some interesting interviews coming up next week as well. I'm not going to pre-announce who it is or what it is, but I think you're going to like it very much. And of course, our Patreon viewers are going to get that 2 days in advance before it's released to the public. So thanks for being a patron, and you do get that extra benefit for doing so. So we appreciate all of you viewing. Winston, see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks.
And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish